Imagine walking into Walgreens. You need a blood test. The nurse takes you to a Theranos wellness center. She pricks your finger. One tiny drop of blood. That is it. No needles in your arm. No vials, no pain. Within hours, you get results for hundreds of tests. Cholesterol, blood sugar, infections, cancer markers. All from one drop. It sounds too good to be true. It is. The Theranos machines do not work. Behind the scenes, employees are using traditional machines from Siemens. They dilute the blood sample. The results are inaccurate. Patients receive wrong diagnoses. Some are told they are healthy when they are sick. Others are told they are sick when they are healthy. Lives are at risk. But Elizabeth Holmes keeps lying. She tells the media Theranos is changing medicine. She tells investors the technology is validated. She tells patients to trust the results. For years, nobody questions her, until one man does. This is the story of the finger prick that lied and the $9 billion fraud built on false hope. Let us rewind to 2003. Elizabeth Holmes is 19 years old. She is a sophomore at Stanford University studying chemical engineering. She is brilliant, driven, ambitious. She has a singular vision: revolutionize healthcare. Holmes grows up in Washington, D.C. Her father is a vice president at Enron, the company that famously collapsed in an accounting scandal. Her mother is a congressional aide. Holmes is raised in privilege, attending elite schools. From childhood, she is obsessed with becoming a billionaire. She writes in a letter to her father, "What I really want out of life is to discover something new, something that mankind didn't know was possible to do." At Stanford, Holmes studies under Channing Robertson, a respected chemical engineering professor. She tells him her idea, a device that can run hundreds of blood tests from a single drop of blood. No needles, no pain, results in hours. It would revolutionize medicine. Patients could test themselves at home. Diseases could be detected early. Lives could be saved. Robertson is impressed. He encourages Holmes. But there is a problem. The technology does not exist. Blood testing requires a certain volume. A single drop is not enough for hundreds of tests. The laws of physics and chemistry are against her. But Holmes is undeterred. In 2003, Holmes drops out of Stanford. She is 19. She uses money saved for tuition to start a company. She calls it Real-Time Cures. Later, she renames it Theranos, combining therapy and diagnosis. Holmes is a gifted salesperson. She pitches investors with absolute confidence. She wears black turtlenecks, modeled after Steve Jobs. She deepens her voice to sound more authoritative. She never blinks during presentations. She radiates conviction. Early investors believe her. Don Lucas, an early investor in Oracle, writes a check. Tim Draper, a prominent venture capitalist, invests millions. By 2004, Theranos has raised $6 million. Holmes is 20 years old, but the technology still does not work. Engineers cannot make the device function. Holmes tells investors it is just a matter of time. She promises breakthroughs are imminent. She keeps raising money. By 2010, Theranos has raised over $90 million. The company is valued at over $1 billion. Holmes is a billionaire on paper, but the technology still does not work. Theranos' flagship product is called the Edison, named after Thomas Edison. It is supposed to be revolutionary, a small box that can run hundreds of blood tests from a finger prick. Patients use it at home. Results are sent to doctors electronically. Early detection saves lives, but the Edison does not work. Engineers struggle for years. The machine cannot reliably run tests. Blood samples are too small. The device produces inconsistent results. Sometimes it works. Usually it does not. Holmes does not accept failure. She fires engineers who say it is impossible. She hires new ones. She tells them to figure it out. The pressure is immense. Employees work 16-hour days. Turnover is high. Many engineers leave frustrated. By 2009, Holmes realizes the Edison will never work as promised. So she pivots. Instead of admitting failure, she lies. She tells investors and partners the Edison works. She fabricates data. She shows fake demonstrations. Behind the scenes, Theranos uses traditional blood testing machines made by Siemens. They modify them, claiming they are proprietary Theranos technology. They call these machines mini-labs, but they are just modified Siemens machines. And even these do not work well. Blood samples are too small, so technicians dilute them. Diluted samples produce inaccurate results. Theranos begins offering blood tests to patients. They partner with Walgreens, opening wellness centers in stores across Arizona and California. Patients walk in, get a finger prick, and receive results. They trust Theranos. They trust Walgreens. They do not know the tests are unreliable. Some results are wildly inaccurate. Patients are told they have infections they do not have. Others are told they are healthy when they are sick. One woman is told she is having a miscarriage. She is not. The emotional toll is devastating. Lives are endangered, but Holmes keeps lying. She appears on magazine covers. She gives TED Talks. She tells the world Theranos is changing medicine. Nobody questions her. Not yet. By 2011, Theranos has a problem. Investors are getting nervous. The technology still does not work. Holmes needs credibility. She needs powerful names to deflect scrutiny. Holmes recruits a board of directors unlike any in Silicon Valley. But these are not scientists or medical experts. They are politicians and military leaders. Henry Kissinger, former Secretary of State under Nixon. George Shultz, former Secretary of State under Reagan. James Mattis, retired four-star Marine Corps general. William Perry, former Secretary of Defense. Sam Nunn, former U.S. Senator. These are titans of American power. Why does Holmes recruit them? Because she knows they give Theranos credibility. Investors see Kissinger and Shultz on the board and think, this must be legitimate. The board members do not understand the technology. They do not ask hard questions. They trust Holmes. George Shultz is particularly important. He is 90 years old, a legend in American politics. He introduces Holmes to powerful people. He vouches for her. He becomes her biggest defender. But the board's lack of scientific expertise is a fatal flaw. They do not scrutinize the technology. They do not demand evidence. They accept Holmes's claims at face value. They are decorations, not safeguards. Meanwhile, inside Theranos, employees see the truth. The technology does not work. Results are manipulated. Patients are harmed. Some employees try to speak up. They are silenced. Holmes and her partner, Ramesh Sunny Balwani, run Theranos like a cult. Dissent is not tolerated. Whistleblowers are threatened with lawsuits. One employee, Tyler Shultz, George Shultz's grandson, works in the lab. He sees the problems firsthand. Results are unreliable. Data is falsified. He tries to tell his grandfather. George Shultz does not believe him. He sides with Holmes. Tyler is heartbroken but determined. He will become the whistleblower who brings Theranos down. 2013. Theranos announces a partnership with Walgreens. Theranos wellness centers will open in Walgreens stores across Arizona and California. Patients can walk in, get a finger prick, and receive blood test results within hours. Walgreens is one of America's largest pharmacy chains. The partnership gives Theranos legitimacy, but the partnership is based on lies. Walgreens executives tour the Theranos lab. Holmes stages fake demonstrations. She shows them the Edison working perfectly. It is theater. Behind the scenes, the Edison does not work. Walgreens does not know. The wellness centers open. Patients come in for tests. They trust Walgreens. They trust Theranos. They do not know the results are unreliable. Theranos uses traditional Siemens machines, not the Edison. The blood samples are too small, so technicians dilute them. Diluted samples produce inaccurate results. Some results are off by 10%. Others are off by 50%. Patients receive wrong diagnoses. One patient is told her thyroid levels are dangerously low. She starts medication she does not need. Another is told he has prostate cancer. He does not. The false positive causes months of anxiety and unnecessary biopsies. A pregnant woman is told she is having a miscarriage. She is not. The emotional trauma is immense. Inside Theranos, employees are horrified. They know the tests are unreliable. They try to speak up. Holmes and Balwani ignore them. They say the problems are being fixed. They are not. The lies continue. Walgreens eventually grows suspicious. Theranos is supposed to be running hundreds of tests on the Edison, but Walgreens executives notice most tests are being run on traditional machines. They ask questions. Holmes deflects. She says the Edison is being refined. Walgreens is not satisfied. By 2015, the relationship is strained, but Theranos keeps operating. Patients keep coming. Lives keep being put at risk, until one journalist starts asking questions. October 2015. John Carreyrou, an investigative reporter for the Wall Street Journal, publishes a bombshell story. The headline, Hot Startup Theranos has struggled with its blood test technology. Carreyrou's story exposes the truth. Theranos' technology does not work. The Edison can only run a few tests, not hundreds. Most tests are run on traditional machines. Results are often inaccurate. Patients are at risk. The company has misled investors, partners, and the public. How did Carrie Rue discover this? Whistleblowers. Tyler Shultz, George Shultz's grandson, contacted Carrie Rue. So did Erica Chung, another former employee. They provided documents, emails, and insider accounts. They risked lawsuits. Theranos threatened them with legal action. Tyler Shultz's family spent over $400,000 on legal fees defending him. His own grandfather sided with Holmes, not him. But Tyler did not back down. Carrie Rue's story is devastating. It is meticulously reported, based on dozens of sources. Theranos cannot refute it. Holmes tries. She calls Carrie Rue's editor, demanding the story be killed. She threatens lawsuits. She accuses Carrie Rue of bias. But the Wall Street Journal stands by the story. It publishes. The reaction is immediate. Investors are shocked. Partners are furious. Patients are terrified. Walgreens suspends its partnership. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, launches an investigation. The Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, begins looking into fraud. Holmes goes on the offensive. She appears on CNBC, NBC, and other networks. She denies the allegations. She says the journal's story is false. She claims Theranos' technology is validated. She says they are changing medicine. But nobody believes her anymore. Over the next year, more investigations follow. The CMS finds egregious deficiencies in Theranos' lab. Results are unreliable. The lab is shut down. Theranos can no longer operate. By 2016, the company is collapsing. Holmes tries to save it. She brings in new management. She promises reforms. But it is too late. Investors sue. Partners terminate contracts. By 2018, Theranos shuts down. The $9 billion company is worth zero. Holmes is charged with fraud. So is Sunny Balwani. The woman who once graced magazine covers as the next Steve Jobs now faces federal prison. June 2021. The trial of Elizabeth Holmes begins in San Jose, California. She is charged with 11 counts of fraud. Prosecutors allege she knowingly lied to investors, partners, and patients. She faces up to 20 years in prison. The trial is a spectacle. Holmes arrives each day with her mother and her partner, Billy Evans, a hotel heir. She is no longer wearing black turtlenecks. She wears modest dresses. She wants to appear sympathetic. She is pregnant with her first child. The prosecution presents a damning case. They call former employees who testify about the dysfunction inside Theranos. They present emails showing Holmes knew the technology did not work. They show she lied to investors, claiming Theranos was generating over $100 million in revenue. It was not. She lied about partnerships, claiming the Department of Defense was using Theranos technology. It was not. She lied about the Edison, claiming it was validated by pharmaceutical companies. It was not. The defense's strategy is surprising. They argue Holmes was not a criminal. She was a failed entrepreneur. She believed in her vision. She made mistakes but did not intend to defraud. And most controversially, they argue she was abused by Sunny Balwani, her former partner and Theranos president. They claim he controlled her, manipulated her, and that she was a victim. Holmes testifies in her own defense. It is risky. She admits some mistakes, but maintains she believed in Theranos. She claims Balwani was abusive emotionally and sexually. She cries on the stand. The jury listens. The prosecution counters. They argue Holmes was in control. She made decisions. She lied repeatedly. She endangered lives. Abuse does not excuse fraud. The trial lasts 4 months. In January 2022, the jury reaches a verdict. Holmes is found guilty on 4 counts of fraud against investors. She is acquitted on charges related to defrauding patients. The jury is hung on 3 counts. It is a mixed verdict, but Holmes is convicted. She faces up to 20 years in prison. Sentencing is scheduled for later in the year. Ramesh Sunny Balwani is Elizabeth Holmes's partner in crime. Literally. He is nearly 20 years older than Holmes. They meet when she is 18, an intern in China. He is married, but soon begins an affair with her. By 2009, Balwani joins Theranos as president and COO. Balwani is not a scientist. He is not a medical professional. He is a software engineer who made millions during the dot-com boom. But at Theranos, he acts as Holmes's enforcer. He runs operations. He intimidates employees. He demands absolute loyalty. Balwani's management style is toxic. He berates employees. He fires anyone who questions him. He creates a culture of fear. Employees are afraid to report problems. They know dissent is not tolerated. Balwani is also complicit in the fraud. He knows the technology does not work. He knows results are inaccurate. He approves the use of traditional machines while claiming they are Theranos technology. He lies to investors and partners. He is Holmes's partner in deception. The relationship between Holmes and Balwani is complicated. They are romantic partners living together, but they hide the relationship from the board and investors. They claim it is professional. This is another lie. At the trial, Holmes claims Balwani abused her. She says he controlled her, manipulated her, isolated her. The defense presents evidence of controlling behavior. But prosecutors argue Holmes was in charge. She made decisions. She cannot blame Balwani for her crimes. Balwani is tried separately. In July 2022, he is convicted on 12 counts of fraud. He is sentenced to nearly 13 years in prison. Holmes is sentenced to 11 years and 3 months. Both will spend over a decade in federal prison. Theranos was not just a financial fraud, it was a medical fraud. Real people trusted Theranos with their health. Real people received inaccurate results. Real lives were endangered. One patient, James Amir, received a test showing dangerously high levels of a chemical linked to heart attacks. He was rushed to the emergency room. Doctors found nothing wrong. The Theranos test was wrong. Amir suffered unnecessary anxiety and medical procedures. Another patient, Brittany Gould, used Theranos to monitor her thyroid condition. The results were inconsistent. One test showed her levels were normal. The next showed they were dangerously low. Her doctor adjusted her medication based on the false results. It caused complications. A pregnant woman received a test suggesting she was having a miscarriage. She was devastated. Follow-up tests showed she was fine. The Theranos test was wrong. The emotional trauma lingered. These stories are not isolated. The CMS investigation found Theranos produced inaccurate results in proficiency testing. The lab failed to meet basic standards. Patients were at risk. Holmes and Balwani were not charged with harming patients. The legal standard is high. Prosecutors must prove intent to harm, but the moral responsibility is clear. Holmes and Balwani knew the tests were unreliable. They let patients use them anyway. They put profits over people. Some victims have sued Theranos. Most will never recover damages. The company is bankrupt. Holmes's assets are tied up in legal fees. Justice for patients remains elusive. By 2018, Theranos is finished. The company shuts down. Employees are laid off. The offices are closed. The dream is dead. Elizabeth Holmes tries to move on. She starts dating Billy Evans, a hotelier. They marry. She becomes pregnant. She hopes to rebuild her life. But the legal reckoning is coming. In June 2018, Holmes and Balwani are indicted on federal fraud charges. Holmes is released on bail. She lives in a luxury apartment in San Francisco. She is photographed walking her dog, going to yoga classes, living a seemingly normal life. Critics are outraged. She defrauded investors and endangered patients, yet she is free. Holmes's defense team tries to delay the trial. They cite the COVID pandemic. They cite her pregnancy. The trial is postponed multiple times, but in June 2021 it finally begins. The trial reveals the extent of the deception. Emails show Holmes knew the technology did not work. She knew results were inaccurate. She lied to investors, claiming Theranos was profitable. It was losing money. She lied to partners, claiming the technology was validated. It was not. Holmes's attempt to blame Balwani does not sway the jury. They convict her on 4 counts of fraud. She is acquitted on charges related to patients, but the investor fraud is enough. In November 2022, Holmes is sentenced to 11 years and 3 months in federal prison. She is ordered to pay restitution to victims. She is allowed to remain free pending appeal. She gives birth to her second child. She delays reporting to prison. In May 2023, Holmes finally surrenders. She reports to a minimum security federal prison in Texas. She will serve at least 85% of her sentence. She will be released in 2033. She will be 49 years old. The fall is complete. From Stanford dropout to billionaire to federal prisoner. From Forbes cover to federal inmate, the House of Holmes has fallen. The Theranos fraud raises a troubling question. How did Holmes fool so many people for so long? Investors, partners, board members, the media. How? First, charm and confidence. Holmes is a gifted salesperson. She radiates conviction. She never wavers. She tells people what they want to hear. She makes them believe. Second, the Steve Jobs Act. Holmes models herself after Jobs. Black turtlenecks, Dramatic presentations, a vision of changing the world. Investors see the next Apple. They want to be part of it. Third, powerful supporters. Kissinger, Shultz, Mattis. These names give Theranos credibility. If these men believe in Holmes, she must be legitimate, right? Wrong. But the halo effect is powerful. Fourth, fear of missing out. Theranos is a hot startup. Early investors make fortunes in Silicon Valley by betting on unproven companies. Nobody wants to miss the next Google, so they invest without due diligence. Fifth, secrecy. Theranos operates in stealth mode. Holmes claims the technology is proprietary. She refuses to share details. She says it is competitive. Investors accept this. They do not demand proof. Sixth, lack of expertise. Most board members and investors do not understand the science. They trust Holmes. They do not ask hard questions. They do not consult experts. This is a fatal mistake. Seventh, media hype. Holmes appears on magazine covers. She gives TED Talks. She is celebrated as a genius. The media rarely scrutinizes her claims. They repeat them. This creates a feedback loop of credibility. Finally, desperation for a hero. America loves underdog stories. A 19-year-old Stanford dropout revolutionizes medicine. It is a fairy tale. People want to believe. So they do, but belief without evidence is dangerous. Theranos is a lesson. Charisma is not truth. Confidence is not proof. Powerful friends are not validation. Only evidence matters, and Theranos had none. The Theranos scandal has consequences beyond Holmes and Balwani. First, investor reforms. Venture capitalists are more cautious. Some now demand independent validation of technology, especially in healthcare. The days of investing based on charisma are fading. Second, media scrutiny. Journalists are more skeptical of startup hype. The Theranos story shows the danger of uncritical coverage. Some outlets now require more rigorous fact-checking before profiling entrepreneurs. Third, board accountability. Theranos' board failed spectacularly. They did not ask hard questions. They did not demand evidence. Future boards, especially in healthcare, are under more pressure to include experts and exercise oversight. Fourth, regulatory attention. The FDA and CMS now scrutinize lab-developed tests more carefully. Theranos operated in a regulatory gray area. That is harder now. Fifth, whistleblower protections. Tyler Shultz and Erica Chung risked everything to expose Theranos. They faced lawsuits in isolation. Their courage is celebrated. Some states have strengthened whistleblower protections. But has Silicon Valley really changed? The jury is out. In 2023, other startups have collapsed amid fraud allegations. The temptation to hype, to lie, to fake it until you make it remains. The culture of move fast and break things can break people. Theranos is a warning. But will it be heeded? Only time will tell. As of 2024, Elizabeth Holmes is in federal prison. She is serving her sentence at a minimum security facility in Texas. She will be released in 2033. Holmes is a model prisoner, according to reports. She works in the prison kitchen. She participates in programs. She is quiet, keeping to herself. She is no longer the confident CEO on magazine covers. She is inmate number 88, here to stay. Holmes has 2 young children. They visit occasionally. Her partner, Billy Evans, remains supportive. He has not left her. Some admire his loyalty. Others question it. Holmes has not publicly apologized to the patients she harmed. She has not admitted full responsibility. At her sentencing, she expressed regret but maintained she believed in Theranos. She said she never intended to harm anyone. Victims do not find this satisfying. Some wonder, does Holmes understand what she did? Is she capable of reflection? Or does she still believe she was a victim of circumstances? Psychologists speculate. Some say Holmes exhibits traits of narcissistic personality disorder. She believes her own lies. She cannot accept failure. She always blames others. But this is speculation. Holmes has never been formally diagnosed. What is clear, Holmes's legacy is destroyed. She will be remembered not as the next Steve Jobs, but as one of history's great frauds. Her story is a cautionary tale. Ambition without ethics, vision without truth, confidence without competence. Holmes will leave prison at 49. What will she do? Will she rebuild? Will she disappear? Will she ever apologize? Nobody knows. But one thing is certain. Theranos is over. The finger prick that lied is gone. The $9 billion fraud is history. And Elizabeth Holmes is where she belongs, behind bars. Today, Theranos is a case study in fraud. Business schools teach it. Documentaries dissect it. Books analyze it. It is the story of how a Stanford dropout fooled some of the smartest people in the world. The Edison never worked. The blood tests were inaccurate. Patients were harmed. Investors lost hundreds of millions. Partners were deceived. And Elizabeth Holmes is in prison, but the lessons remain. Belief without evidence is dangerous. Charisma without substance is hollow. Powerful friends without accountability enable fraud. And when lives are at stake, the truth matters. Theranos promised to change medicine. Instead, it changed nothing except the definition of corporate fraud. The finger prick that lied is a warning. Trust, but verify. Question, even when confident people give answers. And never ever bet your health on a lie. This is the story of Theranos, the $9 billion lie, and the woman who fooled everyone until she did not.